Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome to Care Concierge with Carepatrol, where education is the heart of everything we do for clients. And I hope for you as clinicians that you feel that we educate you properly with actionable advice and resources, such as today's presentation and many like it. Those of you who've been with us before know that we are accredited by the Alabama Boards of Social Work and of Nursing. And each of those boards tells us that we can award 1.0 contact hour for today's content. In order to receive credit, you must complete the online evaluation. The evaluation is password protected. And the reason that we do password protection is that by doing so, it allows us to show to the Board of Social Work that this was a live hour, one in which you had the chance to participate and discuss. And we do encourage very much so discussion. I know that I love that in our presentations, and I know that our presenter today would love to field your questions about the presentation. If you want to contribute, either use the chat or shoot me a little message and I'll unmute you. If you're new to Zoom and you're not sure how to get to the chat, move your cursor to the top of the screen or the bottom of the screen. A black bar will pop up or pop down, and on that bar is the word chat. Click in there and add your comments to everyone else's. Good morning, Mrs. Dunn, and good morning to you all. I hope it's dry on some of you, and the sun is shining, and God's love is shining on you just as brightly. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for all of your referrals to Care Patrol. I think the easiest way to think of what we do and the way that I think people use us most effectively is to think of us as sort of like a healthcare realtor. So we drive folks around, certainly, and show them options, but we're also free to them. We're paid by the provider. So if you have clients or friends or loved ones or patients who have questions about assisted living or sitter services or Medicare or VA or other things, please do allow us to reach out to them. Give us their contact information. We're free to them, and we'll provide them hopefully the same level of advice and education that we provide to you today. Again, thank you for being here. We're very fortunate today that we have a new presentation from a longtime collaborator, Bill Nolan. Mr. Nolan has been an elder care attorney since 1982. So really, at the advent of the profession, Mr. Nolan began working then, and so has, I don't even want to add up how many years that is, of experience to share with you. And one of the things that he's recently discovered and created is today's presentation. And I think he has high hopes that each of us will be able to make great use of this. So without further ado, Bill, thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing about this today.
Well, Sean, thank you as always for inviting me to be a part of this. It's always fun to speak to folks and answer questions. And as you alluded to, today's presentation, you guys, whether you want to be or not, you're my beta testers. This is a work in progress. You're the first audience to hear what I'm preaching today. So I'm hopeful that you'll be generous and give me feedback, ideas, criticism, whatever in the evaluations. Personally, I think it's important to raise awareness about this topic because I've been a lawyer now for a couple of years, and I work with seniors, and I talk with a lot of seniors. I'm not retired myself yet. I'm not sure when that might happen, but I'm getting closer, like all of us are. But over the years, the decades, I've worked with a lot of financial advisors who work with my clients. We have common clients, and financial advisors from all walks, from the big companies to the solo operators. And what I've learned in all of those discussions and meetings is that there is a common, pervasive, and fundamental misunderstanding of the term retirement planning. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So um, let's just dig right in, shall we? Let's see if I can make this presentation. There we go. What we're going to talk about today, understanding it a little bit, financial preparation for retirement, lifestyle considerations that we all might want to consider. And then if I weren't a decent lawyer, I wouldn't mention legal and estate planning, but I have to throw that in just because we're talking about it. That's what we do for a living. Understanding retirement is where we jump off. So is there anybody in this webinar today who doesn't know what the term retirement means? I bet everybody knows that, right? So why belabor that point? It's a goal in many people's careers that at some point down the road they can sit back and no longer worry about getting up and going to work every day, and enjoy themselves and spend their days doing things that they want to do, they want to enjoy, as opposed to going and working for the man. The significance of retirement planning, though, is we're going to go that direction in a minute. But let me give you an analogy, if you will, to think through. So let's say that you decide you're going to get married. Okay. Do you simply just show up at the church one day and tie the knot? Well, you could. I mean, some people do. They go to Vegas and do that kind of thing. But the more traditional way you would go through that is months before the big date, months before you tie the knot, you and your mother, most likely, would start to plan the whole thing out. You know, you've got caterers to deal with, photographers to deal with, florists to deal with. You've got to buy a dress. You've got to choose the rest of the clothing. And you don't want mother and mother-in-law's dresses to clash. You don't want them to be wearing the same thing. You've got to plan the rehearsal dinner. You've got to plan the wedding and choose a venue. You've got to choose a venue for the reception. You've got to choose all the food for that, the guest list, and the honeymoon. You can't just hope that all of that's going to fall into place when the time comes. You're going to plan every conceivable phase of that you can, because you don't want there to be slip-ups. You want every detail accounted for. Well, how is it that so many people enter their retirement years without any short or long-term plans in place, other than I'm going to go fishing, or I'm going to play golf, or I'm going to sit around and watch television all day? Well, that's what we're going to get into. There are basically 3 or 4 phases to the retirement world, I guess, the retirement phase of our lives. The pre-retirement is what we're really doing right now. We're talking through it. You know, you think about saving for retirement. You talk about what adjustments might need to be made, where you're going to live and that sort of thing. Early retirement, of course, is that period when you've just jumped off the employment bandwagon and now you're adjusting to all of those routines and changes in your daily routines and what you and your spouse will be doing. And then the last 2 phases, mid-retirement, is when people are settling in, they're adjusting finally. And then late retirement oftentimes deals with increasing health related challenges, assisted living, memory care, skill care, and so on. Another way to look at it, though, less formal way, there are 3 phases of retirement. Go. The first phase is when you're newly retired and you're going to do all those things that you've been thinking about. I'm going to travel a lot. I'm going to see the world. I'm going to go on cruises. I'm going to go follow my grandkids around and help them out. I'm going to play more golf or more pickleball, that sort of thing. That's the first phase, go. The second, slow go. Well, that's when maybe some physical compromises have taken place. You're not as mobile as you used to be, or maybe it's a memory related issue or whatever. It becomes more difficult to pursue those hobbies and those grandkids and the travel. So you have to, unfortunately, slow down a bit. And then no go, that's when you have significant physical limitations that are going to really be a barrier to travel when your life becomes much smaller, your world becomes much smaller, and you can't pursue many or any of those activities that you had planned for retirement. Um, so that's the way I look at it. You've got the go, the slow go, and the no go. And the sad thing is, I see people who come in here, and I had a lady who came in here. She was probably 70, early 70s, not a bit older. And she said, my husband and I had planned that once we were both retired, we were going to travel around and see the world. And he had just been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And she said, this is not at all the way we planned for our retirement. And that's true. A lot of people have plans for retirement, maybe not detailed plans, but goals like travel. And because they either waited too late to retire or because some physical ailment came along that got in the way of their retirement, they're not going to see their goals come to fruition, which is sad. Anyway, the financial preparation for retirement is critical, as many of you have started saving from your very first paycheck. That putting a little money aside in your 401k or 403b or IRA. It's important to sock some money aside for retirement, even though it might be decades down the road before you get to use that money. It's important nonetheless. And many of you will use financial advisors to help with your retirement savings. Now, here's where I get maybe a little bit sideways with the industry. And I've worked with these guys, and if you're married to a financial advisor, don't take this personally. I'm not picking on any one person or one company, but financial advisors all have the basic message, even though they might doll it up with their own company's buzzwords. And the message is, you need to start saving as early as you can and save as much as you can for as long as you can. And you need to work as long as you can and don't spend more than you have to. And if you do all of that, you're going to be comfortable and happy in retirement. That's the message. Well, financial advisors make a living by selling a product. The product might be a mutual fund, it might be a stock, bond, annuity, or it might be their own expertise. If they charge you based upon a fee, based upon a percentage of your assets under management. But their expertise is in the financial industry. None of them have been retired. They're not counselors. They're not psychologists. They're not retirement advisors, in the sense that it goes beyond saving money for retirement. They would have us all believe that being comfortable and successful in retirement is simply a numbers game. That is, if we save enough and we spend as little and work as long as we can, retirement is almost a guaranteed time of happiness and contentment. And I can tell you, and study after study will show you, that once a person has achieved a certain level of financial security, more money beyond that does not equate to more happiness. Once their fundamental needs are met, having more money doesn't mean they're going to be happier. What other non-financial issues might be going on in retirement besides having enough money to pay your bills every month? Well, there's a lot going on, and a lot that doesn't ever come up in a conversation with a financial advisor. And if you think about it, financial advisors bill themselves as retirement planners. Is there anybody else out there, any other industry out there, billing themselves as retirement planner? I'm not aware of that. Financial advisors have somehow conflated the term retirement planning and financial planning. When financial advisors are helping you save for one aspect of retirement, but not all of the aspects of retirement. And my sermon today is there's a lot more about retirement than a financial advisor would ever bring up, would ever discuss with you. That's what we're talking about really today. Certainly helping people achieve that baseline of financial independence is important, but there's a lot more going on. Some of it might be the loss of identity. How does that affect someone's happiness in retirement? Well, what about the wholesale change that how spouses might relate to one another, see one another, and when you think about it, if the spouses have both been working for the last 30 or 40 years and they see each other at night, they see each other from 6 o'clock until bedtime and then for an hour in the morning and on weekends. That's pretty much it. They're accustomed to that contact. Now they're seeing each other 24/7, 365. How is that going to affect their mutual happiness and how they go about their life and how they relate to one another and what their expectations of each other might be? Well, I think that's an important thing to discuss while you're still working. Don't wait until you're retired to bring that up because it might be too late then. A lot of people talk about the loss of purpose. They felt they had a purpose while they were working. They were a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, or they ran a nonprofit, or they were serving individuals in some capacity. And now that you've removed their purpose in life, they don't know what to do with themselves anymore. And then there are other financial issues going on as well. So that's those are some of the things that have been bouncing around in my mind, and how in the world can we bring those up and sort of package them into a way to help people who are approaching retirement and who've entered retirement. That's really what I'm curious about, passionate about here. Adapting to retirement. Well, people talk about retirement as a stage in life, but really it's a process. It's not something that people go. Yes, the active retirement is a stage. You go from working to non-working, but the process of retirement might be another 25 years or so of a person's life, and they have to learn how to adapt and how to be flexible and how to be forgiving of themselves because it's new to them. They haven't been retired until now. Many people, especially men, tend to get their self-worth from what they do for a living. They're a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant or an executive. And when that's removed from them, when it's taken away from them, they've lost all sense of mooring. They don't know who they are anymore. And some people actually say that women have a much easier time managing that transition from being a working person to a retired person because women in general, and I'm not trying to, paint with too broad a brush here, but women in general will oftentimes see their identity as more than being a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. They see themselves as being a spouse and a mother and a daughter and a friend and a board member, as well as being a lawyer or a doctor. So removing one of those components of their identity doesn't have as much impact as if you removed it from the way a man might see themselves. Not making excuses here for men. I'm just saying that's the way that people seem to see it. Here in Alabama, we oftentimes, when we meet somebody new, we ask them 3 questions. What's your name? What do you do for a living? Auburn or Alabama, or something similar to that. Those are important. People identify themselves as who they are, as what they do for a living. But in reality, people are much more than that, than just a lawyer, doctor, accountant, truck driver, contractor, whatever it might be.
Miss Hurd offers a similar example. She says she had clients who taught at the same high school for 32 years.
Uh-huh.
And then they retired together and absolutely had no idea who they were when they retired.
Wow. Yeah. It's frightening when you think about it, and it's because they weren't expecting that. They weren't really expecting to be faced with those kind of I don't know, existential decisions or that they have to make once they're retired. They've got a lot of time on their hands too. The joke is that the busy executive is retired and he is sitting around the house and bugging his wife because she's got to deal with him now 40 hours more every week than she had to before. Nobody ever told him to take his feet off the desk when he was at work, but now his wife says, take your feet off the coffee table when he's at home. And so he's no longer the boss by any means, doesn't know how to deal with that. Um, so this emotional adjustment is really tough on people. It's hard for a lot of folks to deal with, and nobody, as far as I know of, is talking about it. What? Why not? I don't know. I guess because financial advisors don't like to talk about things that aren't money related, aren't financial related, or maybe they don't have the skill, the training, whatever it might be. But as I said, this is a process, and people need to be forgiving, and they need to be uh, gentle with themselves, especially at the beginning phases of being retired. Um, it's a time of transition, and if possible, people should start that transitional phase of their retirement before they're retired. Um, that is, what if you wait until you're fully retired to pick up a new hobby? That's better than nothing. But what if you picked up that hobby while you're still working? Like I've always wanted to play pickleball. Well, you can do that on weekends. I've always wanted to paint. You could start doing that on weekends, and the transition will be easier when the time comes. You can try it out on a part-time basis. In other words, it seems like the trend in the retirement world these days is not so much going from full time to no time. People tend to go into a part-time retirement phase. Maybe they slow down from 40 hours a week to 30 to 25 to 20 and so on. So people are doing that sort of transitional phase in of retirement. They might not be doing the traditional phase in of new hobbies, new ways to occupy themselves, to entertain themselves, and to educate themselves, to keep their minds going. But they could. So any way we can encourage people we know to transition themselves from being a full-time worker to being a full-time retired person, it would be a good thing. When you think about your business, you may be involved in this, or someone in your business may be involved in this, but every single business has a business plan that is adjusted every year based upon changes in the market, changes in goals, changing in leadership, and so on. You have a business plan, and that business plan is reviewed every year at least to see if it's still workable, see what changes need to be made, and so on. Well, does your retirement have a similar plan in place? Probably not. Most people's don't, other than making sure I have enough money set aside to make it. Nobody talks about how we're going to spend the next 25 years of our life. Um, and yet they could. But who's encouraging that? I don't know. Financial advisors aren't. I wish we were as lawyers, but we're not really doing it either. But helping people develop a plan and refining that plan, tweaking that plan as their situation, their health, their family dynamics change would be a real boon to people being retired. So if there is an industry out there doing it, I'm not aware of it. But I think there could be, and there should be, because there's so many people. The baby boomers are now hitting their retired years, and they say that 10,000 people every day or every week are now retiring. All those people are retiring without any kind of guidance whatsoever. Retirement could be a time when people can pursue volunteer work, and they can pursue travel and leisure activities, gardening, hiking, painting, pickleball. They can educate themselves. They can. There's several groups that help people who are now retired stay involved in education. There's you can go to different college campuses and stay in the dorms over the summer and take classes. You can go on trips, cruises, and other trips and learn how to cook or learn how to speak a language. People just aren't really as involved as they could, or they wait too long to do that. Retirement doesn't have to be this time in a person's life where they're waiting around for their funeral to occur. They don't need to drink too much. They don't need to stay holed up in the house and watch television, watch Fox News 24/7, 365, or lose touch with their friends, become hermits. And yet so many people do because they don't have anyone out there telling them otherwise. It doesn't have to be that way, in other words.
Ms. Thrasher, to one of your earlier points, had said she thought maybe there need to be some negotiating between them. I assume she means the husband and wife about the food on the table. And maybe realizing it ahead of time will help in that planning. She also said that in terms of educating folks, that it may fall on people like on this call, social workers.
Mm-hmm.
And she also just said that after 60 in Alabama, you can take courses at a community college tuition free. I had no idea. You have
Yes.
to pay all the other expenses, though. So you only pay about 25%. There's also OLLI, which many of you may know
Right.
of, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. I know they do programs at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I'm not sure if they have a local presence, but I know I'm scheduled to speak for them at some point coming up in the future.
It seemed like a couple of years ago they were using the Jeff States campus
Is
as
that
a
right?
Jefferson County, but I don't know if they're still doing that or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a great way to stay involved. And you're right. There's a breakdown of communication between the spouses, I think, in many marriages because people tend to get into ruts. They tend to get into this routine, and all of a sudden that routine changes. A huge change from going to work every day, 5 days a week, to now being together 7 days a week. And they haven't talked through that. And they could. It's easy to do if someone would encourage it and someone would help them understand that that would be helpful to both of them. And I don't know whose job that is, but I think there's a need for that sort of thing. Staying physically active, I think, is critical. People. I read an article once about a guy who said, "I worked for my whole career doing whatever it was, being a lawyer, and now I see my primary job as staying healthy as long as I can. So everything I do is focused on maintaining and keeping my health, whether it's changing the way he ate, changing the exercise, he went through and what. I think it's a great idea. Even if you can live a little healthier, a little longer, that's great. You're enjoying yourself and you're meeting people. If you're at the gym or you're playing golf or pickleball, you're meeting people. You're interacting with people, and that's great. There are things that you can do separately and as well as with your spouse, and by all means, you should explore what you can do and take advantage of that, as well as taking classes, write a novel. But don't waste away in front of the television. I see that so often dealing with seniors is they just stay inside. They don't get out of their easy chair, and as a result, they eat too much. They eat the wrong food. They become diabetic, or their diabetes worsens. They lose mobility. Neuropathy sets in. Dementia is a byproduct, and they gain weight. And nothing good can happen in situations like that, unfortunately. Some of the considerations people need to think about, though, as we talked about, maintaining those relationships. What can you do to, what I've read is that when a person works, they get a lot of feedback and a lot of rewards from those work relationships they have. Their colleagues give them a lot of feedback and a lot of support. And when they leave, when they retire, they just assume that those work friends will continue to be their friends. But the fact is, those work friends are working. They're at work all day. They don't have time to go to lunch with you or to we have some friends who are retired. And I swear, I think they do this just to get to us. But they'll call us and they'll say, "Hey, we're going to our lake house. You want to come?" And I'll say, "Stan, it's Tuesday. You know that, right? It's Tuesday. I work during the week. He goes, oh yeah, that's right. Sorry. I really think they do that to rub it in that they're retired or not. But the point is, your work friends are working and they don't have time to play golf with you during the week like you have plenty of time. So sometimes those work relationships fizzle out as a result of that. And you need to find a way to build new relationships. That's the challenge. That's your goal. I can't tell you how to do it. I'm just telling you that it needs to be done.
Jennifer Calder is asking if you like playing pickleball.
I do. I really enjoy it. My son is really good at it, but it's a fun thing to do.
Where
And
do you play? I've been wanting to do it.
well, there's Lifetime Fitness has a huge pickleball
Right.
presence. Vestavia seems to encourage pickleball too. They have several of their tennis facilities around. I mean, they're public parks, and you can play pickleball at those. There's one out towards Greystone, not Greystone. Um, it's out there at Overton Road and
Oh
450.
yeah.
Um, Big place there where you can play pickleball. There's Crestwood Park has a pickleball presence. So you can go on. There's a private club in Vestavia called Pickler or something like that, but it's expensive, and I haven't been up there. But it's like tennis, except it's a smaller court, and so it's easy for people who might be older to be able to. I say older, my age, who can play without really, pulling a muscle or breaking a leg or whatever it is. And it's a lot of fun, and people are close enough together so you can have a conversation while you're playing. Whereas with tennis, you're so spread out, you really can't hear the other people if they're talking to you. So yeah, I encourage pickleball. Clubs and groups, that's another thing that people need to be thinking about long before they retire. What kind of clubs? Some people like square dancing or bridge or whatever it might be. There's all sorts of opportunities out there. We just need to find a way to encourage our family and friends who are closing in on retirement to think beyond watching television all day long.
There's an app called Meet Up. And if
Meet
you
up.
go onto that app, when you register, you fill out, the different things that you're interested in, whatever those are. And then you get, daily email, weekly emails stating that, this club or that function or what have you. But I mean, it's not just, pickleball. It's like there's like very nuanced things like fly fishing, tying
Mhm.
flies. I mean, whatever you are into, I promise, is on that app.
Great. That's good. Meet up is the app.
Uh-huh.
And you do it geographically. Is that how it works?
Yeah, yeah, it's on your area.
I see. That's great. Yeah, that's great. I'll have to write that one down, look it up myself. Um, the My wife is a divorce lawyer, and so I behave myself. But um, aside from that, uh, she tells me that many of her clients tend to be older couples, older individuals, 65 and older. She says that, in fact, divorce is declining across all of the age spectrum except for people 65 and older, where it continues to increase. Well, that's interesting. Why is it that seniors are divorcing at higher rates than, say, the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s? Because it's happening. She tells me that there's several reasons for that. One is that in previous generations, when you hit 65 or so, you only had maybe 5 years left of good life. And so what's the point in rocking the boat when you only have 5 years to go? And another component of that is in previous generations, women were much more dependent on the man for financial security than they are these days. In fact, many women make more money than their husbands do these days. Uh, and people are realizing that I'm 65 and I've got 25 more years to go, and I'm not satisfied to be in this relationship for the next 25 years of my life. I'd rather be single than to put up with this any longer. And the reasons for men getting divorced and women getting divorced might be slightly different, but the fact is they are splitting up because they no longer feel compatible with one another, which is a shame. Um, because I really think that if they had communicated better about their mutual retirement, these divorces would not be occurring nearly as often. But some of that just happens to be because they have different perspectives on their retired years, and they've never talked about that with one another, which is a shame. Um, and so helping people understand that this is a process, this is part of your life, this is like the wedding planning I mentioned earlier. You don't just step into the church and get married. You have and hope that everything will fall into place. You have to plan these things. You have to talk through it. And so often people don't. And as a result, well, that financial advisor's formula for happiness, as long as you have enough money, you'll be happy. Well, these people getting divorced have plenty of money, but they're not happy. Why is that? Because they missed out on all these other elements, aspects of being retired that nobody helped them talk through, unfortunately. Um, there are other issues to think about as you're retiring too. The moving from your home to independent living. Yeah, I'm 70 myself, and I can tell you I am so sick of doing yard work. I never want to see a big yard again. Um, owning a house is a pain in the rear. You've got gutters and a roof, and you've got air conditioning and heating and plumbing in the yard, and all of that to deal with. It would be very easy, very tempting, to move into a community environment where you don't have to worry about that anymore. So it's something that I've never really considered until recently, and I keep thinking about it. Maybe so. Maybe that's what I need to do. Out west, they have these things called ADUs, which are called alternative dwelling units. And it's catching on here in Alabama a little bit, but out west it's big. And what it is you'll have your main home where your kids and your grandkids live, and behind the home they'll have a small home, almost like a cabana or something. It's not huge, maybe a one bedroom or a two bedroom kitchen, that kind of thing. It's called an ADU. And you can live literally on the same grounds as your kids and grandkids and help them out with childcare, help them out with driving kids to sports and ballet and swim team and all that stuff, and still be part of your kids' lives and still have a place to live. It's also a great idea from a Medicaid planning standpoint, because if you help your children finance the cost of an alternative dwelling unit on their property, well, after 5 years, that money that you've used towards that ADU won't be anything that Medicaid could hope to get back if you have to go to a nursing home. Whereas if you own a house, they're going to put a lien on that house, no matter how long you've lived there. Helping choose a retirement community. Sean, you know a little bit more about this than I do. That's the business Sean's in, helping families, and he didn't charge anything for that, as many of you know. His goal is to help people choose the right community to live in for their needs, and whether they have pets or they smoke or they have to be in a certain zip code or a certain price point. That's a huge benefit to families, especially those families whose kids have moved away now. Mom and dad still live in Birmingham, and the kids don't have time to come back to Birmingham and kick tires for a week and drive mom all over town. That's what Sean does. So if you can use his help, by all means, don't forget that that's what line of work that he's in.
Thank you, Bill, for the plug. And I've got you on my quarterly check in now that you've expressed an interest.
Well, I tell people it's a great service that you guys provide, and you can't beat the price. So why in the world wouldn't people take advantage of it?
Thank
As
you.
I mentioned, I wouldn't be a very good estate planning elder law attorney if I didn't at least bring up the points about what people need to have in place. We meet with people all the time in their 80s who will come see us and say, well, we don't have a will yet, but we thought it might be time to get one. Well, I admire their optimism, because you never know. Uh,
One second. Ms. Hurd said to our previous points that over the past 3 years, she has helped four couples navigate separation and divorce after 30 plus years marriage.
Yeah.
And empty nesting contributed a lot to them being unhappy in their marriages.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. People have seen themselves as a mother or a father, and when their kids move out, it leaves this huge void where that role used to reside, and they no longer get that feedback or that benefit. I mean, yeah, they're still a mother, still a father, but their kids are now independent, and they don't know how to relate to one another as spouse to spouse, which is a shame. I can understand that, really can. Um, as you talk to your family, your friends, your clients, your patients, making sure that they understand the fundamentals. Having a will is so important. People think that dying without a will is the cheapest way to go, whereas a will costs 1/10 the cost of going through probate without a will. So it's not cheap by any means. You're not doing your family a service by dying without a will. Almost everybody needs a will, especially if they own their own home. And I don't mean own it outright. I mean, if you own it and you still have a mortgage, you should have a will. And there are other things you can do. Trust, for example, can help out as well. But everybody should at least have a will. Everybody should have a power of attorney. That's the document that lets someone take care of you financially if you can't take care of yourself. It also helps your loved ones do Medicaid planning if you have to go to a nursing home and you can't speak for yourself any longer. It helps your spouse do Medicaid planning as well. Even if you think that all of your assets are jointly owned, they're not. Your IRA or 401k is an individual document, and your spouse can't touch that unless they have a power of attorney. You can't touch your husband's retirement account unless you have a power of attorney. And don't forget your healthcare documents. Once you're retired, hopefully you'll spend more time with each other. You'll travel a lot together. You'll go to Walmart together, the grocery together. Well, when you're traveling together, accidents can happen to both of you. And when they do, who's going to be making medical decisions for each of you because neither of you can make them for the other? Well, you can put that on paper now. You can have the plan in place. If both of us are injured, we want our daughter or our son or his brother or my sister to make those medical decisions for us until we're able to speak for ourselves again.
Ms.
So
Hurd is asking if POAs transfer from state to state.
generally they do. Healthcare documents are a little bit more specific, but in general, if a power of attorney is legal in the state of origin, it's going to be recognized in wherever you might go for a new state. It doesn't hurt. Powers of attorney are not expensive, though. It's not a bad idea if you move permanently to go ahead and get a new one in California or Michigan, Florida, whatever, because they'll certainly be recognized if they're in state. Healthcare documents, they all do the same exact thing, but they go about it in such a different way that it's always a good idea to have healthcare documents issued in the state where you happen to be living, because otherwise the hospital might, the doctor or nurse might say, we're here in Michigan. This thing says it's an Alabama healthcare document. We need to send this up to legal to have it reviewed before we can let you make decisions. Well, a lot of times medical decisions have to be made on a pretty quick turnaround. You don't have time for some cushy corporate lawyer to be sitting up there and looking at your document between rounds of golf and all that. You need to make those decisions right away. So having a state-specific healthcare documents, I think, important. Other details that people don't think about: if you are a guardian for an adult child, maybe Down syndrome, bipolar, could be schizophrenia, those guardianship arrangements need to be taken care of, because if you die before your child, he or she might not have the ability to pursue that independently. So make sure that if you have a child or a grandchild you're taking care of who has a special need, to make arrangements for that guardianship to step in when you can't do it any longer. And if you have the ability and the resources, to put together a special needs trust for that individual as well, so they can qualify or continue to qualify for Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, disability, and so on. through that
I have
financial.
a question about that. I've looked for special needs trust attorneys, or do they exist?
Yeah, there. We do special needs trust here. Um, Cerroti does special needs trust planning as well. I would think pretty much any elder law attorney could help you with special needs trust planning.
Okay. And then
Um,
Ms. Hurd had a question back to your points about medical healthcare documents, if that would be the same as an advance directive.
yes, here in Alabama, healthcare documents fall into uh, three types. The Alabama Advanced Directive for Healthcare is a combination of two documents. It's a living will where you say, if I can't speak for myself and I'm at death's door, I do or don't want artificial support, I do or do not want food through a feeding tube, and so on. It's an appointment of a healthcare proxy, which is where you're saying, if I need someone to speak for me, I don't have to be at death's door. I just need somebody to speak for me. I want my spouse or my child to be my spokesman until I'm able to speak for myself. Now, that's the Alabama Advanced Directive, the healthcare proxy, and the living will. In addition to that, we include a HIPAA waiver where you're saying, I know my medical condition, diagnosis, treatment options, et cetera, are confidential, but I'm giving the hospital, doctors, nurses, pharmacy permission to discuss whatever's going on with me medically with the following people: spouse, child one, child two, and so on. And then we do um, um, it's basically a directive after death that says, after I'm gone, I want the world to know that I've appointed my son or my daughter to be my person to plan my funeral to the extent that things still need to be taken care of. It could be cremation, burial, and so on. And that way it avoids there being any conflict about who you want to make those plans. So all of those together, we consider healthcare documents.
Mrs. Dunn is asking, she says, Mr. Nolan, thank you for clarity in the session. I have obtained a wealth of knowledge. You're so right regarding a will and power of attorney. In the African American culture, we don't follow up on this thoroughly. I have experienced this firsthand with my father dying without a will, and with four other siblings, I had to secure a lawyer. Shout out to attorney Keith Preston. This was a wake up call for me. State DHR provides these resources free of charge. That's great to know.
It is great to know. And you're right. We see it too often. Uh, yeah, across the spectrum, though, people, all walks of life, thinking that everybody knows what they're going to get anyway. So why should I go to the trouble to write it down on paper? Or I don't have anything. So why go to the trouble or the expense? Or my daughter already knows who gets what. So, she'll take care of it. And it's just not that simple anymore. It really isn't. Uh, Here in Alabama, if you die without a will, the person who administers your estate is called an administrator. If you have a will, they're called an executor. But if you don't have a will, they're called an administrator. Well, an administrator has to be an Alabama resident. You can't be some other state and serve as administrator. A lot of families, well, they live here, but their kids have moved away. They're in California, New York, Michigan, wherever. And now mom dies, and the kids, they can't administer mom's estate because mom didn't have a will. So now the county administrator has to step in. The kids don't have any decision-making authority. And the county administrator, their job is to make a living. They could care less about saving taxes and court costs and time and all that for the family. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to avoid the county administrator stepping in, and it's easy to do. All you have to have is a will.
Ms. Thrasher asked, what if someone just writes a will in longhand?
Well, a will has to meet certain minimum statutory requirements in order to be valid. Um, Certainly, having a memorandum as to what you might want to have happen to your stuff is important. But in terms of being recognized by the court as being an official will, well, it would have to include the magic language, which, I hereby make this to be my last will and testament, revoking all previous wills, prepared by me. And supposedly you're supposed to say I'm of sound mind and disposing memory, which means you're not crazy and you know what you're doing by giving away your stuff. And you have to specify what you're giving and appoint somebody to be your personal representative. And then the document has to be signed by you. It has to be witnessed by two people, and it has to be notarized. And the witnesses and the notary have to all be in the same room and see you sign the document. So, yeah, many times people don't have the means or the wisdom, to do all that. And as a result, what they think is a will isn't. So it costs about $500, $600, $700 to get a lawyer to do a will, and if it saves your family thousands litigating it, why not? Just in closing, if you hear someone, I hear this a lot. People come and say, "I want to save taxes. I don't want my kids to pay any estate taxes." Well, here these days, your estate has to be worth at least $14 million when you die for you to have to pay estate tax. So if you read an article or hear somebody on television talking about the death tax or the estate tax, tell yourself that person's rich, because if you don't have $14 million, you could care less about what the estate taxes are. Personally, if somebody's worth $14 million, I want them to pay estate tax because they need to. But anybody with less than that, they don't have to worry about it. So don't worry about it. Alabama doesn't have a state inheritance tax, so you don't have to worry about it here either. So taxes are a non-issue for the vast majority of us. Anyway, in closing, when you talk to your friends, your clients, your patients, your family, when you talk about retirement, just make sure that they're aware that there are other equally important aspects of retirement than how much money they've socked aside, because there are. People don't think about those. And the financial planning community, they're not talking about it. They would lead you to believe that all you have to have is enough money set aside and everything's going to be peachy. And all of us have seen examples where that's just not the case. So make sure they understand that there are equally important aspects out there. And with any luck, somebody's going to come up with a strategy and a business model where they can actively help people through this period. I don't know that they exist yet, but if they do, please tell me. I'd like to talk to them. Thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, comments, the Survey Monkey's there, and the secret word, the password, is there too. So I'm here to answer any questions in the last few minutes we have.
Miss Benton asked if you've heard of the Mama Bear legal forms.
No, I haven't. Mama Bear.
Mama Bear. And then
Okay.
Jessica Nix is saying that it can also be very challenging for people to address the need for a will, PO, etc., POA, etc., if they have significant health or mobility challenges leaving their home.
Yeah, you're right. We do house calls, but not everybody does. So you're right. It can be difficult. And a lot of people who are that age are not very familiar with Zoom or any of the ways that we can do virtual meetings without help of somebody else. But yeah, our firm does house calls, so feel free to call us if you have family, friends who are in that situation. We've also used the Alabama School for the Deaf and Blind for families who have a loved one who's hearing impaired to help with that. And we've worked with people who are blind as well. With blind families, you have to actually read the entire document to them and ask them to agree that that's what they want. Otherwise, you can put anything under somebody's nose who's blind and have them sign it. It might not be anything like what they expect.
Ms. Benton says Mama Bear is Dave Ramsey vetted.
Okay. Mama Bear. I'll look that up then. Thank you for that suggestion.
And for those who are listening on YouTube, as you cannot see the chat room, I'm going to read the link for the evaluation. It's https:// www.surveymonkey.com/lowercase r/ all uppercase 5x 6, G as in girl, F as in Frank, M as in Mary, 2. The password is capitalized. It is retirement. Capital R, lowercase ETIREMENT. That's our password for the day and our link. Thank you all so much for being here. Many people are commenting wonderful information. I enjoy your programs. Thank you. Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I'll be happy to send it on over.
And Ms. Dunn says you've been a wealth of knowledge. Thank you all for being here. Thank you again, as always, Bill. It doesn't appear that we have any more questions, just notes of thanks, which we thank you. We'll see you again in 2 weeks on the 23rd of June. That's a Monday. And we have a new presenter, Dr. Caitlin Aroginski, who's with the Movement Disorders Clinic at UAB's Department of Neurology. And Dr. Aroginski will speak on Parkinson's disease. If you need to look for links to our future presentations, just go to carepatrol.com, look for my landing page. I'm Birmingham, Huntsville, Montgomery. Scroll down my page, and you'll see all the links to all of our upcoming CEUs for the remainder of the year. The password is working. That's good to know. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Bill. Any last words?
No, thank you all, and appreciate your time. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Yes, same. I had the same note of hope that you all have a blessed week and blessed 2 weeks, and that you'll see us, and we'll see you again here on the 23rd. Thank you, Bill. Always a wealth of information.
Great.
And we appreciate your 40 years of service to the aging population
my
in our
pleasure.
area.
My pleasure. Y'all have a good one. Thanks for your time.
Yes, y'all take care, everyone.